It was December 1983. Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas was again the scene for the annual meeting of the Colorado River Water Users Association. From the 7 states within the Colorado River Basin came over 400 managers of water systems, together with many state and federal officials concerned with man's use of the river. Their purpose, as usual, was to review the past year and to learn what could be expected in 1984. Featured on the program was the long-awaited premiere of the multi-image show entitled From Snowfall to Sandstone, sponsored by the Upper Colorado region of the Bureau of Reclamation. The show employed 12 slide projectors, a motion picture projector, a computer, live actors, and an original music score. It was no doubt the most complex show ever produced by the Bureau of Reclamation. A number of highly qualified bureau and contractor specialists worked on all phases of the production, including script writing, camera,
tentatively set up for 10.
directing, show design, computer programming, music and sound, and acting. Partially funded from private sources, the show is intended to be eventually housed at the Visitor Center at Glen Canyon Dam, where it will be shown on a regular basis to thousands of visitors. From Snowfall to Sandstone provides a conception of the Colorado River Storage Project through historical and modern skits, through music and sound, and through slides and motion pictures.
It's now my pleasure to introduce to you Kathy Lovelace, the Public Affairs Officer for the Upper Colorado Region, Bureau of Reclamation.
It was the month of October, 1958, at a remote canyon along the Colorado River in northern Arizona. It had been named Glen Canyon way back in 1869, but it was not yet well known. Changes were in the wind, however, changes that would result not only in this canyon being altered, but a large section of the American West.
A massive dam to be called Glen Canyon Dam and a huge reservoir to be named Lake Powell had been planned for this canyon. They would serve as key units of the Colorado River Storage Project. Earlier in 1956, Congress had passed an act authorizing the project, and construction was now set to begin. 2,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., President Dwight D. Eisenhower, along with Secretary of the Interior Fred Seaton, prepared to press a telegraph key that would detonate the first blast.
Jump into my waters and I'll take you for a ride. I am a mighty river with banks that swell with pride. You'd better hold on tight, 'cause I'm anything but tame. I'm sure you've heard about me, Colorado is my name. From Snowfall to Sandstone, come travel with me. From Snowfall to Sandstone, come travel with me.
Throughout its length, the Colorado River and its tributaries give unity to a varied and colorful region. Although it is called a desert river, it is born of the snows in the Rocky Mountains, mountains in Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. Each spring, a crescendo of snowmelt runoff rushes downward across the mountain valleys and into a series of canyons, onward toward the sandstone lands of the high desert. The river will always flow with its yearly rhythms, but it was inevitable that man would someday look to its waters as a source of new life for the benefit of mankind.
In the year 1776, two Franciscan priests led a small expedition northward from Santa Fe to the land of the Ute Indians. They were Fray Antanasio Dominguez and Fray Sylvester Escalante. They sought a more inconvenient route to the missions of California.
Our long ride downward from that high plateau today was very tiring, but the green of this valley was very beautiful. Tell me, my brother Antanasio, have you recovered from your recent indisposition?
Oh, the Lord is with me, Fray Silvestre. He has caused the rains to cease while the warm sun warms my body. And as for this valley, I too was much impressed with its size and obvious fertility.
Juan, would you please bring forth the Tabawachi Ute Indian that we met today? Perhaps the Ute can tell us something about this land and the tribes that live nearby.
Juan, would you please ask the Indian what his name is for this valley? And Bernardo, make sure to note the name of the valley on the maps.
Father, he says the name for this valley and the river is the Uncompahgre, which means red rocks. He says the water comes from that great rugged highland we saw to the south.
Is this a perennial river, or does it cease its flow every autumn?
The Tabawash says that although much water flows with the melting snow, the river never dries.
We have seen fine metals covered with tall grasses. Could not irrigation from the Uncompahgre River and the tributaries bring forth crops in abundance?
Indeed, that is so. Water could be distributed through a series of canals that would carry it around the hills and onto the land.
He also says that a much larger river flows through a deep canyon to the north of this valley. Could not the water from this river be used for a supply of irrigation water?
The suggestion is of course absurd. No one can dig a tunnel that long. But I will nevertheless note that in the Uncompahgre River itself there is probably ample water, and within the valleys and the nearby mountains we shall find all the rest that is needed for establishing a good settlement.
And perhaps also, my brother, a good-sized mission.
Excuse me, Father, but the Tabawash has just told me that if we will follow him to the crest of that long mesa to the north, that we will meet many of his tribesmen.
If that is so, we may find an Indian to guide us toward our objective of Monterey and Alta California.
The youth has told me that he will be glad to guide us as far as he can.
That is good.
On the top of Grand Mesa, Dominguez and Escalante met with a large group of Indians from several bands. A young chief and a small boy agreed to guide them west. They crossed the Green River near the present town of Jensen, Utah. In late September 1776, they were guided down the Diamond Fork into the spectacular Utah Valley.
Since I am the map maker of this expedition, I have spoken with an interpreter to some of the Utes that live in this most interesting valley. They call it the Valley of the Tippanogatsis. And as the Indians live by the shores of this large lake, I think I will call them the Laguna Ute Indians.
The Laguna Utes. Excellent, Bernardo, excellent. And I think we should give thanks in our services for this courageous Indian guide who led us to this valley and who concealed us from the Comanches.
This is a most favored land with its rings of protecting mountains and numerous streams of clear water. It is no wonder that it is home for so many Ute Indians.
Certainly, this is a fine site for a mission and a large settlement. And many farms could be irrigated with these abundant waters.
I most heartily agree. By the use of irrigation, this area could hold a population larger than that of Mexico City. I believe, in fact, that it is the most beautiful valley in all of New Spain.
In addition, the natives are friendly and eager to accept the blessings of our faith. We must urge the governor to establish a mission in this most favorable valley.
But one must ask the question, my brother. Where are the colonists? Where are the priests who are available and willing to move so far north into the uncharted lands of the Utah Indians? And someday in the future, we may discover that the English colonists may push their settlements west and even try to take over this part of New Spain.
That, my friend, is a danger that we cannot avert. We can but warn the governor and stress that he must take action to establish a mission here.
But first we must continue on to Monterey, where we can find fame and riches.
Bernardo! As a mapmaker, you must realize that we are more than 200 leagues from Monterey. There are no trails, there are no guides, and even the Indians say that this trip is impossible.
Furthermore, we are already 57 days out of Santa Fe, and the nights are getting cold. Miera, look at the mountaintops. Snow may be expected any day.
With respect, I must protest your decision, which will deny me my just rewards for making this trip.
That may be, Bernardo, but we will have enough difficulty returning to Santa Fe through uncharted and unknown lands, and somewhere we will have to cross the Rio Colorado, which may prove to be very dangerous.
Furthermore, we have made our final decision. We will leave with the morning light.
In spite of their hopes, the Spaniards did not return, nor did they send settlers to the valleys of the Colorado Basin. Save for the passing of an occasional fur trapper, it remained the land of the Ute, the Paiute, and the Navajo. Meanwhile, the Colorado River flowed on, largely unseen and unvisited, through a succession of canyons it had carved through the Colorado Plateau.
We sure did have a rough go today on that last rap. Even though Major Powell did signal for us to land before running it, there just weren't no place to land.
I saw the Major's boat capsize. I was fair sure we was all headed for a swim. But you know, even with only one arm, that old scudder made it back to shore okay.
I was about ready to go back in there for him. I tell you, that Major did me a big favor when he got me out of the Army to come along on this here little trip. I tell you, to get out of that Army, I would have agreed to go exploring the River Styx. Oh, boy.
Did you ever consider it a bit strange that here it is, 1869, and we got settlers in the Colorado and the Utah territories? But you know, up until now, ain't nobody tried to float down this Colorado River. Not even fools like us.
Mind if I borrow your fire, gentlemen? I'm still a little bit wet. No, I agree with you, Sumner. But you know, the canyon walls have closed off access to this river at all but a few points. Some people have made up stories about impassable waterfalls and giant rapids. I don't believe them.
Well, we might not have seen waterfalls, but we sure seen whitewater. I'll say. I'll tell you, if the river keeps up at this rate, we'll be going uphill by the end. And that ain't usually the case with these here rivers.
Bradley, you're right there. Let me tell you something. I do think the river's going to continue to the sea. And furthermore, gentlemen, we're going to make it. You know, someday others might try to follow us, but I don't see boating becoming very popular on the Colorado River. It's too dangerous.
And too much work.
That too. Now, but, you know, I do see the day when this river will be used for irrigation in several parts of the Colorado River Basin. The settlers can join together, just like the Mormons already have in Utah, to build dams and canals and get this water up onto the land. You know, even the states or the federal government may have to assist in some kind of a big irrigation program.
Does that mean we all ought to buy up a few acres of this here rock and sand? Call it a farm?
No, not hardly. No, sometime they might call this sandstone scenery, but it sure ain't gonna grow a radish. No, where you ought to put your time and your money is in one of them broad mountain valleys where irrigation is possible. You might want to try investing in the lower Colorado River, but take a dam the size of the Great Pyramid, and I don't see that happening very soon.
All this talk of civilization moving in makes me hanker for the sight of a buffalo out on the prairie. Yeah. Or even the sight of a friendly Indian.
Oh, gentlemen, there are Indians on the canyon walls just above us. Maybe not friendly. No, I don't reckon we ought to try to climb out.
It's either mean water or rough Indians. I'll tell you, either way, it's a pretty grim choice.
Gentlemen, have faith. I'm sure it'll all look a lot better with the morning light.
In the years that followed, Major John Wesley Powell helped explore and map the basin for his countrymen moving west. And so the valleys of the Uncompahgre and the Timpanogotsis were settled by Americans as they pushed westward.
For many years, the pioneers of the upper Colorado River Basin and adjoining areas were served by low-cost irrigation systems. Some of these systems were efficient, many were not. Some of them were privately owned, while some were early-day reclamation projects financed with loans from the federal government. By the middle of the 20th century, however, planners realized that growing populations would soon require larger, more complex water projects. Many potential projects had been examined years earlier, only to be rejected because of the great cost. When re-examined, many of these projects could be made feasible with financial support and with a guaranteed supply of water. The answer was a plan to build large dams, reservoirs, and power plants that could support a network of water development projects. The plan was named the Colorado River Storage Project. In October 1956, President Dwight Eisenhower pushed a telegraph key to signal the first blast at the key unit of the Colorado River Storage Project, Glen Canyon Dam. For the next 14 years, the canyons echoed with the sounds of construction at Glen Canyon Dam, Flaming Gorge, Navajo, Blue Mesa, Morro Point, and Crystal Dams. These were the so-called storage units that, through their storage of water in large reservoirs and through their revenue-producing power plants, would make all the other units possible. Glen Canyon Dam and its huge reservoir were to be located at the south end of the basin, where water could be released in measured amounts to the lower basin to meet compact commitments. Flaming Gorge Dam was to control flows of the Green River just south of the Utah-Wyoming border. The Wayne-in-Aspinall Storage Unit was designed to be 3 dams on the Gunnison River in western Colorado, while Navajo Dam was planned for the San Juan River in New Mexico, with its reservoir crossing the Colorado border. With the large dams nearly completed, turbines and generators were installed in the power plants. Transmission lines were stretched across the land, while substations were built to turn the power toward the many customers.
And therefore I will now take action which will start the first generator at Flaming Gorge Dam. I never know when I press these whether it means we're going to blow up Massachusetts or light a fire or electricity, but I would go on the assumption that we are going to start the generator.
When the president pushes the buzzer, we will wait then to hear from Mr. Walton over the loudspeaker, who will report on what the generator does, and thus you'll know, Mr. President, whether you blew it up or not.
We don't hear from him. It's back to the drawing board, and we'll start again. There we go. Fine.
Mr. President,
The generator is now running at full speed.
Hydroelectric energy flows from the Colorado River Storage Project power plants, not to large cities, but rather to hundreds of medium and small cities in Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Nebraska.
During 1983, the high flows of the Colorado River brought us about national, even international attention. News reporters visited several of the dams of the Colorado River Storage Project, not only to view the spectacular torrents of water, but also to learn more about the complex workings of this system.
This is the last stop on our tour of Glen Canyon Dam and Power Plant. You've all been very patient while I've explained to you how the system operates. Now, do you reporters have any further questions?
Yes, I'm still confused about the Colorado River Storage Project. You've backed up a large lake and you generate electric power, but how does that benefit people who need water in the upper basin states?
The Colorado River Storage Project is a difficult concept to understand. Now, the basic objective is to deliver water to the land and the people that need it. The problem with that is that the cost of most projects is so high that they can't be built without financial assistance. And this financial assistance comes from the sale of hydropower generated here at Glen Canyon, or over at Flaming Gorge, or at the Wayne and Aspinall Storage Unit.
Yes, but Lake Powell is huge. I mean, now why do you need such a big lake if all you're going to be doing is generating hydropower?
Large reservoirs are needed to supply downstream commitments in times of drought, which inevitably occur in the Colorado Basin. Without them, the many smaller units that actually deliver the water to the people would have to shut down operations in times of drought.
Just where are all these water projects that the Colorado River Storage Project makes possible?
They're all located on the upper basin tributaries of the Colorado Basin. As you can see, some of them are very large, complex, and expensive, and others are small and simple. Several of these projects have already been constructed and are delivering water to the farms in the cities. Many of them are still under construction and also in the wings. Some of them are waiting for funding from Congress.
You mentioned water for farms and cities. Could you give us a little more detail on that?
Surely. Delivering water and power is the fundamental purpose of the whole complex project. Now, after these water projects are built, they are usually turned over to water user organizations or conservancy districts for operation and maintenance. Then these groups or districts then sell the water to private customers. I'm sure you will agree that the water from these projects have kept the farms and cities green and productive.
Well, yes, but I've also heard comments about fish and wildlife impact. Now, could you comment on that and also give us some more information on recreation development?
Fine. We have something prepared for you on that. To give you a little background, I'm going to put on a slide presentation that will explain what has happened in those areas thus far.
Flaming Gorge Dam, Navajo Dam, and Glen Canyon Dam have cleared the Green and Colorado rivers of much of the suspended sediment. Whereas these rivers were often muddy, especially during each spring runoff, they are now clear. Yearly fluctuations have also been reduced, so that river rafting can be enjoyed all through the warm months and into fall. Clear, cold water flowing down these rivers has changed the fish habitat, so that game fish now thrive, where they can be caught by fishermen on and beside the rivers. In fact, portions of the Colorado River system are among the finest fishing streams in the nation. Preservation of native fish and wildlife on the streams of the Colorado River Basin has been a strong priority of the Colorado River Storage Project. Where canyon floors were flooded by reservoirs, new areas were purchased for what is called mitigation, actually replacement in a nearby area. Wildlife refuges were developed to provide both nesting and resting places for birds. For upland game, carefully selected areas were purchased to be developed primarily for the habitats of these birds and for other animals. To keep the reservoir stocked with game fish, funds were provided to build and operate 2 fish hatcheries. At Glen Canyon, because the reservoir was so vast and virtually roadless, the first game fish were dropped as tiny 2-inch fingerlings from a slow-flying aircraft. Over 95% of the little fish survived the plunge into their new home. New reservoirs on the Colorado River and on its tributaries have added another dimension to recreation. Smaller reservoirs are used by local residents, while large reservoirs such as Glen Canyon, Flaming Gorge, Blue Mesa, and Navajo are visited by millions of national and international visitors. Back behind Glen Canyon Dam is Lake Powell, named for the explorer-scientist Major John Wesley Powell, who led the first long explorations of the Colorado River in 1869. Lake Powell is over 180 miles long and is one of the most scenic and interesting bodies of water in the world. It is here that most of the water can be stored to meet downstream commitments. But that technical fact, however important, palls beside the color and the magnificence of Lake Powell.
Well, now, I certainly appreciate all that your agency's done, but I do have one more question. What about the big floods on the Colorado River during 1983?
That's right. If all these big dams and complex projects were built to carry water supplies during periods of drought,
aren't they all unnecessary now that we're into a period of abundant snowfall and ample water? Well, one or even a few seasons of high runoff doesn't mean that the droughts are over. And secondly, the dams really prove their value by holding back a major portion of the floods. I'm sure we can all agree that it was a spectacular and unusual year and that the runoffs continued through June and into July. And at the dams, many of the spillways were used for the first time in years. They created magnificent water displays never before seen on the Green or the Gunnison or the Colorado rivers.
Many writers have characterized the Colorado as an outlaw river, alternately cruel and violent, then glistening with natural beauty. But the river lives not as an outlaw. It belongs to the mountains, to the green valleys, to the deserts of rock and plunging canyon. It is a vital part of the winds and clouds and of the driving snows that mantle the high country. The river is part of all life within the land, of the trees, of the flowers, of the birds, the fish, and all other animals, and of human life as well. For as much as we believe that the river belongs to us, so also do we belong to the Colorado River.
Charms with the snows of December melting into my arms, carving my path all the way to the desert sand.
Ladies and gentlemen, the cast and crew off from Snowfall to Sandstone, the Sin City Dancers right here from Las Vegas, Tina Robinson, leader. University of Utah actors, Steve Hunt, director. Costumes by Robin Van Wagner. In a technical production like this, there are many people who work backstage and who are still backstage, and I'd like to recognize those people. The program choreography was done by Reg Berlin, special effects by Terry Strayed of Strayed Productions, original soundtrack and music by Rich Sanders of Saul Productions, photography by Tom Fredman, photography, script and co-director Bud Ruscho, photography and co-director Robert A. Pauline. Let's give them a hand.